So, bring it on was the message there at the end of Sir Keir Starmer's speech. Bring the election to May the 2nd, confirm it's May the 2nd. It's hard to know, isn't it, what the government is thinking on that front. But my impression of the Chancellor's speech was that was not an immediate pre-election budget, although you never know with the amount of digging he made against Labour as a tax-rising party. I think it's over. Yeah, they've been a bit, my goodness, they've been very... very chaotic today, as these things normally go. Yeah, it is over now. Let's talk to Natasha Clark, LBC's political editor, who was so rudely interrupted earlier on by Sir Keir Starmer's arrival after that break. Natasha, that was interesting at the end there, wasn't it? Confirm it's May the 2nd. That was a bring it on moment, wasn't it, from Starmer?
It was, but Labour obviously want an early election because they think they're going to win. So that's obviously the tack that Labour and Keir Starmer are going down towards at the moment. For what it's worth, I agree with your analysis just there. That didn't really feel to me like the budget just before a party that's about to launch into an election campaign. However, I think we could start to see, like you said, the formations of what we can expect the Tory manifesto to look like. They were talking repeatedly about wanting to cut taxes. Obviously, we can have a debate about the highest tax burden in modern times and whether people really feel better off. But what was interesting in his speech was how Jeremy Hunt talked about how people who are in work get taxed twice for national insurance and for income tax. I think that was a big hint that we are potentially going to see the Conservative Party make a promise in their manifesto to perhaps scrap national insurance altogether. Now, that would be obviously a huge promise if they did decide to make that. And obviously they have done that. They have made quite big strides towards doing so in the past 6 months.
Isn't the problem with that, though, and if it is what they put forward for the election, we can talk about it more then, but isn't the problem with that is a key part of, for example, plans to fund social care better than we do at the moment? It's a key part of some of the sort of real sort of health and social care structures that we have in this country. And if you scrap that, you've got to find it somewhere else.
That's completely right. And I think it's a slight myth, I think, that money goes directly into our NHS and things like that. It doesn't. No. Exactly. It's not ring-fenced. It all goes straight into this one big pot for the Treasury. It is for some reason. Exactly.
I've paid my subs, I've paid my NI, health and social care safe down the line. I can walk into a hospital and and it's a really deep-seated thought in people's minds, I think.
Yeah, completely. I think you're absolutely right that it is something that people think goes straight towards the NHS and straight towards that. And it obviously goes into this big pot. And the Treasury are going to have to find billions if they want to actually replace that cash. So, yes, it's not one simple thing. But I think, yes, my main takeaway from that budget is all of the individual measures, especially the rabbit out of the hat, that high income benefit charge, which you've been speaking about briefly with some callers that we've had in, will be very well received. Fuel duty freeze, very well received. The capital gains tax, which will hopefully, the Chancellor says, make it slightly easier to buy a home and hopefully free up a little bit more of the housing market. That will be well received. The high income benefit charge eventually will be levelled out so that middle income families will hopefully find the system a bit fairer. So you won't be penalised if you're a single income family, if you're a single parent.
You're talking about child benefit here specifically, yeah?
Yes, that's exactly right. And I think that will all go down quite well with voters. But as a package, how will it go down? Are you going to feel better off? And that's the message that Sir Keir Starmer was trying to put across in his reaction to the budget just now. I think according to the OBR, just looking at some of the fine print now of the budget, which has now just come out in the last few minutes, we're now looking at what they think, the experts think about our public finances. And Jeremy Hunt will be really pleased with some of it, including inflation, which they now said they expect to fall a lot quicker than we thought. They're saying it might get down to 2% in the next couple of months. That would be a huge boost for him and potentially another argument for why you should wait for a general election till later this year.
And if, as looked to be the case, if Jeremy Hunt wanted us to remember his jibes that Labour are the tax increasing party, really, Starmer wanted to remind people of what he says is plainly a record of decline, stagnation, low or no growth. He made that point about GDP per capita and the difference between the two. One is on paper, one you really feel in your pay packet, that kind of thing. That those are the kind of the stories that they want to sell politically, aren't they? Don't trust them, they'll raise your taxes. You can't trust them, look at the last 14 years. That's essentially the story, isn't it, that they're trying to...
Exactly, and I'm sure we that is exactly the narrative that the Conservative Party want to paint for Labour ahead of the next election, that they're going to put up your taxes and you can't trust them with the economy. But Labour, rightly on this one, have an incredibly strong argument. Well, actually, look at what you guys have done. Look at what you guys have done the past few years. Look at Liz Truss's budget and look at the economic situation. GDP is still dragging on the floor. It's still incredibly sluggish and it's not been doing very well. Inflation obviously has been soaring. Food prices still incredibly high. And I think many people will be looking at this package of measures and going, yes, it might make me a bit better off. But actually, if you look at the overall picture, people still feel worse off. And that's the question that people are going to be asking ahead of the next election, is whether they feel better. And I think, to be honest with you, it doesn't matter how many taxes you cut. We know that all of this is just not going to be able to fill the big black hole that is, the public finances and how the nation feel in the last few years.
Anyone who finds that they've got £1,300 more a year will be pleased to have that £1,300 more a year, but because of the child benefit thing. But if you also are paying £400 a month extra on your mortgage because of current interest rates, because of the lag still of the trust moment, it's not going to make you jump for joy.
It's just not going to cut the
No,
sides, is it?
no.
It's not going to cut the mustard. And I think the OBR estimates that some of these tax giveaways today are only going to create half as much as the income tax thresholds, us being dragged into those higher rates of tax are going to do. I think that's what people are going to feel. They're going to say, actually, it doesn't matter how much you give me. It's still never going to replace all of the fact that we've had all these tax rises over the past few years. The government says that's to pay for COVID. The government says that's to pay for Ukraine and energy prices going up. And that is completely fair. But for many people, they will go, that's not going to touch the sides, is it?
Okay.